Hello and welcome to Super Boothers. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Ismail. And today we are finally discussing the first book of our book club, The Ultimate Sales Machine.
It took a while.
Well, you got to give people time to get through it, you know?
So it was kind of a very profound book.
I mean, I've obviously made my feelings about this book very clear. It's arguably one of my favorite business books out there. For sales, I haven't found a better book. I don't know if you agree.
What were some of the things that resonated with you the most?
I have a few things this book is very detailed as well. So he goes into like step by step on how to do certain things. But for high level takeaways, I have a few that I kind of jotted down for this episode. I don't know if you had anything offhand that really stood out to you.
Right at the beginning of the book is he talks about conversion. And what I really enjoy is it's the vacuum cleaner model. And what I mean by that is so this guy like essentially goes into businesses and, they say, hey, here's my problem. And he identifies the problem and helps them fix it. So one of the things that came up was, and I'm paraphrasing here, so if I miss a detail, just, please don't file a complaint with the Podcast Association of America. However, he was talking about, I guess, going into this vacuuming seam cleaning business. And, he said, well, what's the problem here as well? We're getting people to buy, they're just not buying multiple times. And he was saying, okay, he goes, well, what we need to do here is, he was going into a well-established business and, with years and years and years of books and clientele that, we really don't have to get new people. We just need to get these current people to buy again. He was saying how he took their sales staff and kind of gave them a little pep talk. And he goes, we're going to take this little marketing data approach. And what we're going to do is we're going to educate our customers as to, what steam cleaning for your house can do. The carpet cleaning leads to healthier air and it leads to, increased oxygen intake. And then you have more energy and your house just smells clean. You're in a better mood. And all these studies that just show how much of a benefit cleaning your carpets can be. And by the end of this, I'm like, holy crap, I need to clean my carpets. I have hardwood floors. Like I have no need for a carpet cleaner. So that was the thing is, if you're educating the client as to, what they need and telling them and educating them as to, what benefits come out of whatever we're trying to sell you without really selling. So you're essentially selling by education. So you're saying, hey, listen, here's all the stuff that's good and great for you. When's a good time for us to come by? Well, crap, I want you to clean my carpets now. So what he would do is go in and have like the sales staff make their calls. And you know what? We're going to call 10 people today. You're going to do this little sales script and, really ask people, hey, this is what's going on. So at the end of the day, he comes back and says, so how did it go? And they're like, oh, well, really didn't work. Well, why didn't it work? Well, I only got 2 people to buy. Well, those 2 people that's 20%. So you got 20% of people to purchase. Let's take 20% over the course of your year. So let's say, let's just do some quick math here. So let's say we have, a book of 10,000 customers, and of those customers, 20% buy. That's 2,000 people. And say let's say each carpet cleaning represents, $99. That's an added $196,000 to the company's bottom line over a book of business that they already have. That's not any new marketing money spent. That's not any new, all they're paying for is staff, I guess. Let's say one person accomplished that and, you achieved $198,000 worth of revenue and you get 5% of that. You've just added 10 grand to your personal income. Think about it that way.
Yeah. If I had to take what I think is the main takeaway from the whole book, it's this whole concept of education-based marketing is what he calls it. And he talks about how, for example, when you sell to someone, you're breaking rapport. But if you're educating someone, you're actually building rapport with them. And there's a lot of benefits to doing that.
Yeah.
He touches on things like whenever you use market data or statistics to educate, it doesn't make the thing about you and pushing a sale. You're helping the client, and that makes it easier for you to actually get the sale. It also establishes you as an expert, gives you credibility. These are all things that help you, get to the sale without focusing on getting the sale, which is kind of the secret here. And it also circles around the law of reciprocity, right? So if someone gives you value, right, you want to give it back. And it's the same thing with your potential clients. If you're educating them and teaching them, and they see you as a company that is not just selling them, you actually know what you're talking about, and you're telling them things that they didn't know, that's what works. I remember the last time I bought a vehicle, the guy I bought it from knew everything about the car, everything. It still sticks with me to this day. And what happened? I ended up buying the car from him. So it's a very powerful tool, and I think that to me is the whole major concept of this book, education-based marketing. A lot of people don't lead with knowledge and giving value. It's all about, here's what we offer, here's the prices, what do you want?
Some of the other little kind of tidbit takeaways that I got is to commit 1 hour per week dedicated to like cold calling or dedicated to sales. So one of the things that you kind of should be doing this year is, if you're experiencing a little downtime, don't let the downtime go to waste. Go over every single event you did last year, figure out which one of those are recurring events every year, and reach out to those people and see if you can get that event for next year, and see if they have, an event for another event or what have you. So, and what you're doing is you'll go in and say, hey, listen, we have this new thing. I thought about you, what do you think? Don't sell. Just say like, hey, there's this new experience. I'm just looking out for you.
Yeah, and for people who are following along with the book, I actually have in front of me, there's a cool thing that he talks about on page 64, the stadium sales pyramid. And he basically breaks down how out of all like the potential buyers out there, 3%, only 3% are interested in buying right now.
Sure.
That explains why a lot of people don't sell a lot at the bridal show or at these other events. Only 3% are interested in buying now. 7% are open to it, right? The other 90% fall into the other categories where 30% is not thinking about it, 30% doesn't think they're interested, and 30% just knows that they're not interested.
Sure.
So without doing education, you are only open to converting the 3%.
Sure.
But when you're educating them, you get the other 7% that are open to it, 30% who aren't thinking about it but may actually benefit from your service, and the 30% who don't think they're interested but with some education realize that, hey, you know what, this actually makes sense for me. There was a cool example in here where he kind of broke down, I'm skimming through it right now. So he basically says, imagine you're speaking in front of a conference of retailers, right? And you give a talk like, so he's saying that there's different layers of education, right? So he says, let's say you understand this and you go give a talk, something about, the 5 ways our office equipment can benefit you, right? That's better than just selling your product. You're talking about 5 ways it can benefit from you, but it doesn't have enough of a broad appeal to get the other 90% of that pyramid interested. So he mentions doing something like, the 5 reasons all retailers fail. Now that will get every retailer sitting in that audience to pay attention. And the thing that you need to focus on is how you can tie that in to what you're offering and lead with education that will benefit your whole potential, clientele, but that also touches on how you help solve those issues. I thought that was an amazing point.
There was a photo booth person, I don't know who it was, but I guess what they do is they kind of include like a little like guide of like what to do and what not to do whenever someone asks for information. I think that there's a fine line in being helpful and being proactive and making sure that your client is educated, but there's also an issue of overloading someone. And you just have to kind of give someone like tidbits. Alan Berg, he's a speaker. I believe he's going to be at Photo Booth Expo. And he was talking about how, like, whenever you are dealing with, like, let's say a millennial client, they don't want to talk on the phone. They don't want to, they just want to text you. They just want to email you. They want answers quick, that kind of thing, is you need to bullet point stuff. So instead of writing a long drawn out thing, just hit the bullet points as to, what your main features are. What is the biggest thing that's going to help you? For me, it happens to be a Beautify filter. If I mention that, they are putty in my hands. Everyone loves a Beautify filter.
Yeah. And the whole education concept, one other thing that, stuck with me as I was reading this is that it's not just educating your client, right? So he talks about the importance of training and educating your team, right? So a lot of companies do these, 1 hour seminars every once in a while about different topics, and he's really critical about that. He kind of pushes the agenda of having regular, ongoing education and training for your team. And I take this, what resonated for me is that this is something that you should do for yourself. So I'm glad I got to reread this book because, you go to these conferences, you read these books, and a lot of things sound great. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I should do that. Then the days go by, you get back into your routine and you forget it and you never do it. So the importance and value of going through a book more than once or having a training more than once really enforces.
Or listening to a podcast more than once.
Exactly. It really enforces the message and ingrains the knowledge in your mind and also for the your staff. So I thought that was really insightful as well.
One of the things that I kind of pulled out of this book that would really apply to the photo booth industry is to get the multi-year events, is the events that happen every year, those big galas, those, things that are recurring. Is one thing that has been successful for me is to be able to lock people in to like a 3-year. So what I'll do is I'll give them generally a better rate if I can guarantee the business for 3 years. You can't do it with the first event that you get. So like let's say you get like this, one gala and they love it. And, hey, do you want to do a 3-year? Don't do that. Only do this with established people that you really have like the rapport with. They're not going anywhere. Corporate people are creatures of habit. They don't like to change stuff. So if you can be able to like lock someone in, that's absolutely the way to go.
One other thing that I had just written down, it's a small little thing, but on page 12, he talks about he kind of goes into being productive. And for people who are into productivity hacks, you might like that whole chapter. But one thing that kind of stuck out to me, it's very basic. He talks about the importance of the concept of touch it once. So, everyone's kind of familiar with how, you're working on something for your business and an email comes in from a client and you get distracted. And you look at that email and you're working on the email and then someone calls you on the phone. So you pick up the phone and you're talking to that client. Another email comes in. You forgot about the old email. You got to go back, reacquaint yourself with it. You forgot what you were working on. And all this kind of going back and forth to revisit, readdress, or reread emails. He kind of said interesting fact about even if you waste only 15 minutes per day to revisit and reread things, you waste 100 hours per year. 100 hours per year just kind of re-looking at things. So he made this great point about don't open that email until you're ready to deal with it. And kind of like what you've said before, Ryan, don't pick up that phone unless you have a half hour available to talk to that client.
Sure.
If you touch it, take action, basically. Don't leave it because you got to waste time looking at it again.
That's a big thing. And another thing that really resonated with me was to eat the frog. And that's an expression of do the hardest part of your day first. Whatever it is looming, you don't want to have it screw up the rest of your day. Just do it. You're not going to like it. Just get it done. And you know what? You have to deal with a pissed off customer. Just deal with it first thing in the morning. That way it doesn't hang over your head all day. And if you have ridiculous anxiety like I do, just get it done, get it over with, and then you don't have to think about it again.
So I'm curious to hear what you thought about this other section that kind of stood out to me. Starts on page 84, was about hiring superstars and the difference it makes to hire the best people. And he went into a lot of detail, like from design to like how to write the ad to attract superstars, how to interview them, how to structure their pay. He really went into a lot of detail in this chapter. So for people who are at the point of considering, growing their team, I strongly suggest looking at this whole chapter. But I don't have a salesperson. So I know a lot of people that are, bigger operators do have salespeople, and the way they structure their pay and incentive is always interesting to me. And he kind of talks about how he would err on the side of offering as little pay as possible and making everything kind of the upside. He mentioned an example of someone that did like $9 an hour, but had generous commission.
Sure. You need to find people that will work for themselves, not for you. You have to make people to where they are held accountable for their own actions and for their own success, and they control it, not you.
Yeah, and that's he really walked through all the steps of how to attract those people and how to spot those people. So there's a lot of detail in here. It would take an hour or so to go through all of it. So I recommend looking at it if you have the book, or if you don't, picking it up. But that's kind of something I'm thinking about currently. So that really stuck out to me. One interesting thing was when he was talking about the job posting or the ad. He says everyone puts the average. Hey, the average salesperson makes $50,000 working for us for this stuff. He says I would always put the highest amount because you're trying to attract superstars. So you have to assume that they're going to knock it out of the park. And by putting, like, let's say, like, I'm looking at the headline right now. He said superstars only, 50,000 to 300,000. You already attract a different kind of person looking at that ad. And he starts off the ad saying, don't even call unless you are an overachiever and can prove it. Now think about, we've talked about the importance of words and terms in previous shows. Think about what that says when you're trying to hire someone. Not everyone has the confidence in themselves to apply for a job like that. So there's little things like that you can do to plant seeds and attract the right kind of person. Ryan, I don't know what you think about all this stuff, but this is just something I've been thinking about. So this whole chapter stuck out to me.
Hiring salespeople is always a little difficult because you don't want to have someone milk you and, just kind of go through the motions and, I'm, networking and selling and just that part gets annoying. So I always think you should find out what works best for you. One of my friends that's a caterer she had a higher turnover for salespeople, she would decide within 2 weeks if you're cut out for it or not. I mean, she could just smell it, and you can just tell. She has a higher commission structure to where you are more in control of your income. I think that it's a little bit difficult for photo booth people to do it just because we're at such a low price point. We're not selling, $15,000, ticket items, every day.
What if the salesperson gets you a relationship with a venue that does bring in numbers larger than that, right? So
good. Yeah, absolutely. Good for you. Take all the commission you want. I mean, but until you do that, you're going to be stuck selling the little stuff. So if you can find someone that takes initiative to do that, by all means.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess to people who are listening and are skeptical because they're a small company and they're just,
we have a lot of skeptical listeners in your mind.
Listen, I'm just trying to answer all the questions. So, there's people that are just small businesses and wondering, hey, can this be applied to me? There's actually a page in here on page 97 titled How Even One-Person Armies Can Hire Top Talent.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to think that this is only for bigger operators. I think that this is a great chapter to really go through, in my opinion.
That's the thing is you just need to find creative ways to have your sales. For example, I was saying about the multi-year events and, things that happen every year, try and lock them in. I think that if you can do something to solidify your relationship further sooner, I would just do that. But that's just kind of me. So I would much rather forge a relationship with the venue and be able to make that recurring income. One of the things that I've done it with flowers before, I've done it with photo booth before, is whenever you get hotels that have a per person price, see if they can work you into that per person price. So let's just say your photo booth is going to be, let's just say you're going to do a $700 rental, and that's going to be 4 hours. So that comes out to $175 per hour. Let's say that this, I guess, the average guest count that this person or this particular venue would have would be like 150 people. That is $4.66 per person. If you can get the venue to increase their per person to include you, they make money and you make money. So they know that anyone over 150 people, they're making buku money from your photo booth, but you still get your revenue, and it's guaranteed, and you don't have to sell it.
Yeah, those creative ways are always very interesting. Did you get that from someone else, or is that just from experience?
No, that's what I used to do with flowers. Yeah, we used to sell centerpieces for $3-4 a piece, or a $3-4 per person piece, a $7 piece and a $12 per person piece. So that just depends on whatever you're doing. So then you build it into whatever. So it really works with clients that just want one bill.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that, if you find a venue that's all about the one bill, that's just gold for you. To where all they hire is the venue that includes everything. And I'm talking cake, DJ, lighting, linens, centerpieces, photo booth. The only thing that they have to bring in is their photographer, and that's it. Sorry, that's money going off.
So I only had one other main takeaway that I wrote down. Did you have anything else before I go into this last thing?
I did, but continue.
So there's this one part I remember that really stuck out to me years ago when I first read this book, and I remember telling all my friends about it. And it may sound a little woo woo, but it's actually backed in
Whoa,
science.
whoa.
Yeah, woo woo,
What does
little,
that mean?
like the meditation and all the, a little woo woo. Don't you never heard of woo woo?
I heard of kumbaya.
A little kumbaya, a little woo woo, whatever floats your boat. But
Okay.
there's this thing called reticular activating system,
What
right?
did you call me?
RAS for short.
That is my initials.
Really?
Ryan Adam Salinas.
Well, you got to pay close attention to this. That's a sign right there.
Gosh.
So this is backed.
I can't say that.
This is backed by science, and basically the way he explained it, which I thought was pretty interesting, was imagine you're walking in an airport.
Imagine.
Just imagine. So Ryan, take yourself to the airport.
No.
You're
No. I don't want to go.
you got time before your next flight. So you're just walking down with your luggage. You hear the speaker. There's kids crying in the left hand side. There's the food court in the right side, and there's all this noise, right? All these people talking.
I'm in LaGuardia.
Yet, if over the loudspeaker it said Ryan Salinas, pick up the phone, you would immediately hear that. Your brain has the ability to sort out all the other background noise and zone in to what's important to you, right? And he also had the other example, which everyone kind of relates to, is once
It's my mother calling me.
once
I'm
you
sure.
buy a car, right? You start to see the car everywhere.
Yes, or you get car lust.
Yes, so that's basically the RAS at work, right? So he's basically saying that again, it's a little woo-woo, but stick with me here. If you can hone the power of your brain, it's a very powerful thing. And this is how he wraps up the book. And people have limiting beliefs where people say, I'm not creative, I'm just not good at talking. And what happens is that your brain starts to, like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where it makes you not good at talking or not creative. And he's kind of taking this to the point where if you're always focused on finding problems, right, you're going to find problems.
Sure.
If you think the economy's terrible and you walk down the street, all you're going to see is like stores for rent or stores for sale. If you're not going to see the factory next door that's being built and hiring hundreds of people. So he's saying if you focus your brain on finding solutions or whatever it is that's important to you, it'll start, just like in the airport, it'll start like blocking out the noise and focusing on that. If you want to focus on sales, your brain will use that ability to try to find other creative sales opportunities. I thought that was something that, obviously, I'm not doing it justice by just talking about it. He went into it with a few pages. That's the last chapter. I would really recommend everyone reads that part and kind of rereads it. Ryan, I don't know if that's a little too kumbaya for you. What'd you think?
No, not at all. I mean, I agree with that. There was one book that I read in college. At least I vaguely read it, or told my professor that I read it, or maybe I bought the book and it just kind of sat there for a while, and I don't know. But anyways, the gist of it was, it said, like, kind of whatever you put out there is what will come back to you. So if you say, I'm going to do an event with Oprah, you're putting it out there,
What a great example.
and then it
Because
happens.
You said that
I did.
way before it happened, and it happened.
It's so weird. And I have some other things that I've just kind of said, like, I want to accomplish, not necessarily this year, but things that I want to accomplish. And it just happens and comes back to you just because you're putting it out there. That's a little foo-foo, but I absolutely agree with it. And I think that whatever you put out into the universe, it just has to come back to you.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into the woo-woo area, but like I said, it's just like the airport example everyone can relate to, or the car example. If you give your brain something to focus on, it'll focus on it and start finding things that will help you achieve that goal. And
it also talks about habits and habit forming, and how you have to do something 21 times before it officially becomes a habit.
yeah, and the interesting thing to me is that a lot of people that read this book, like I remember the person who won a copy of this book at our New York event, after he read the book, this is the part he talked to me about. So for some reason, this clicks with a lot of people. And I think once you hear those examples, you realize that, hey, this is really something here that I can hone and use to my advantage.
The last thing that I wanted to really talk about was something that we kind of all get caught up on. I think that, I use the cake person as a good example. It is, the person that is in the office and, I made a cake for everyone it was someone's birthday. Gosh, this cake is so good. Can you make one for my daughter next week? Sure. Well, then you deliver that cake to that daughter's birthday. There's 3 more people there, and they want cakes for their daughter's and son's birthday, to the point where you are making a lot of cakes out of your house. Well, you can't be making all these cakes in your house, so you need to get out. We need the house back. So then you go and you open a cake shop, and then you all of a sudden now have to handle accounting and ordering and delivering and staffing. And then all of a sudden you're not baking cakes anymore. And that's the part where I think a lot of people are at, is we like to take photos. Now all of a sudden we're business owners, and now we have to do all of the things that come with owning a business. We know what we're good at. Most of us don't know what it takes to run a business. That's why most businesses fail within 3 years. We just don't know what we're doing. So getting overwhelmed is a pretty common thing. My way of the mantra that is in this book is, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. If you just do just a little bit every single day. That's the thing, is like right now, like I'm really focusing on my health and, lowering body fat. And my goal is to lose 1% of body fat per week. In 15 weeks, I would have lost 15% body fat. Think of it that way.
And you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I really am. Check out my Instagram. It's on there.
What was also surprising to me is when we first announced this book, I was actually really surprised by how many people bought the book. Like, people were sending me screenshots of them getting the book, screenshots of them buying the book. And that really blew me away. I think this is something we want to continue, right? The book club.
Absolutely. So we're going to be announcing our next book next week.
Yeah. But in the meantime, let us know what you thought of the book. Let's have a discussion. Go into the Facebook group. We'll start a thread and just comment what your takeaways were, what you thought of our takeaways, and if there's anything that you took from this book and actually did to improve your business and how that went. We'd love to hear about all that.
Thank you so much for joining us this week. Come see us at the Photo Booth Expo, March 12th through March 14th at the Westgate Hotel and Casino in fabulous Las Vegas. If you would like to come to our Super Boothers event, the Boothover, tickets are available at superboothers.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.